stories you're about to hear are entirely true. They are some of history's most notorious and sinister mysteries. Whenever possible, the actual police and witnesses involved have been used in the recreation of these events. Your hosts, senior mystery analysts Ben Pateski and John Nafziger, have been exploring the paranormal and the unknown for over a year. They dig deep for society's own good, working in the dark to bring the truth to light. This is Drunk Mysteries.
Good evening, greetings, fellow seekers of truth, compatriots in bringing the darkest mysteries to the light of the public. My name is John Nafziger, and I am joined with my masculine and some might say just bulging muscled co-host, Ben Pateski. Ben, how are you this evening?
John, I am doing fantastically. My muscles are bulging out of my skin. I'm feeling vigorous. I'm feeling sexual. I'm feeling like testosterone is pouring through my veins so much it's practically dripping out of my eyelids. But more,
I can see it actually. Well, that's actually coming out your nose. It's red. I don't know if that's I don't know if that's just a nosebleed.
Every orifice of my body is just seeping gooey testosterone.
Yeah.
But John, before we get into the meanderings of goo and it coming out of various orifices, I would like to implore our listeners to make sure that they themselves are filled with goo. And the best way to ensure that you are filled with gooey, sticky
what kind
testosterone,
of goo, real quick? Okay.
Yeah, testosterone-ish, pinkish goo is to review and subscribe to the podcast, also known as Drunk Mysteries.
Where can they do that?
They can do that in their iTunes store or wherever they listen to podcasts, really. Wherever you are listening to this besides our website is a place you in all likelihood can review and subscribe to us. And folks, subscribing and reviewing Drunk Mysteries on any podcast app is proven by science to increase the amount of just sexual goo that flows through your veins. John,
you're gonna feel more potent. You're gonna feel more powerful.
Absolutely.
You're gonna feel like you've accomplished, a feat equivalent to scaling Mount Everest.
Absolutely.
After you have subscribed and reviewed, and that feeling is not gonna leave you for weeks. Am I wrong?
Sweat will trickle all over your body, and you will tingle with the flares of desire. And no, John, you are not wrong to answer your questions. Here's the thing: is that listening to Drunk Mysteries has been known to induce orgasmic levels of pleasure.
Has it?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Every time I listen to Drunk Mysteries, you know what I do?
Come?
Orgasm.
Right.
So
okay.
yes, come, as we call it in the business. So, John, what are we drinking tonight?
Tonight we are going to be drinking New Belgium Voodoo Ranger Juicy Haze IPA. Now, Ben, as we've talked about before, is an avid fanatic, maybe addict of Voodoo Ranger Imperial IPA. It's the strongest alcohol content you can get at the gas station near our house, so that is often his first pick. But tonight, New Belgium has offered us a spring citrusy twist on an old classic. And I gotta say, they've toned down the alcohol level just enough. It's 7.5% by volume. Just enough that it's not as prevalent and it doesn't quite taste like malt liquor the way the other...
John, you bring up an important point because Voodoo Ranger is known for nothing if not blurring the lines between beer and malt liquor.
That's true.
As you know, and what he said is just truth, my friends. There is a gas station down the street from our studio that
called Imports.
Called Imports. They don't sell many imported alcohols though.
That's true.
And they
also
sell
true.
Voodoo Ranger beer among other things. And our good friend Ken, who works behind the counter at us, who clearly loves his job, and he's just a strong, handsome man that's around the age of 50, and he sells me Voodoo Ranger on a weekly basis, and it really does make me feel like I am getting drunker than I should with class, because I'm not drinking malt liquor, I'm drinking beer.
Right. So they took that and basically added oranges. So yeah, that's basically Voodoo Ranger Juicy Haze IPA.
Buy some today.
Yeah. So, okay, Ben, the mystery I want to talk to you about tonight, I want to paint a picture real quick.
What is it, John?
So, okay. Just after the Second World War in 1946, between the wide open landscape where Texas border meets Arkansas, known endearingly to the locals as Texarkana, a spree of grisly murders took place. The killing spree would wash a creeping sense of dread across the rural expanse. Each dusk, the townsfolk would arm themselves to the teeth with guns and other various weapons they had around their house and farms.
Knives.
And they would lock themselves indoors while police patrolled the streets and neighborhoods. Stores would sell out of ammunition, locks, and other home security supplies. To put simply, the actions of one evil and nefarious person drove the lightly populated county into a state of panic. Neighbors could no longer trust each other. Children weren't allowed to just explore freely and go find maybe dead animal bodies in the woods and
it ain't
forage.
The 90s no more, folks. People
It
don't
was
let
1940s. So
yeah, I know. So
yes,
it
it was
40s.
it's not the 90s. But they weren't allowed to do that. And for a few weeks, they suspected everyone around them to be capable of murder.
Wow. I can't imagine living in that sort of suspense in my own community. Can you?
The killer would never be caught or apprehended.
So, John, I feel like since we're trying to solve this mystery and, bring whoever the killer might be to light.
Yeah, exactly. What else are we trying to do here?
No, we should probably start from the top, and I'd like to start with the very first attack in this Texarkana, Texas,
there are
Arkansas
attacks
border.
and murders. So yeah, talk about the first attack.
So, John, at around 11:45 p.m., so almost midnight, on the cold and windy Friday of February 22nd, 1946, the young local boy known as Jimmy Hollis, who was not so young, he was age 25, and his girlfriend, the luscious Mary Jean LeRae, age 19, had parked on a secluded road known as Lover's Lane, getting ready to swap some spit and tell each other sweet nothings as they danced in the moonlight. So they had just seen a movie together, and they were hanging out on Lover's Lane, and around 10 minutes later, a middle-sized man wearing a white cloth mask, not a cloth hood that would resemble a Ku Klux Klan mask.
Yeah,
but
not
something-
that. Just like
it was more like a pillowcase with the eyes cut out. So it's fucking creepy. And so he approaches the two lovebirds' driver's side door, and then he flashes a flashlight in the window. And confused, these two lovebirds told him that they had the wrong person because this guy, they assumed he was a cop. And the man responded, "I don't want to kill you, fella. Just do what I say." So, both Jimmy and Mary, the two lovers, were
Mary Jean.
Yeah, Mary Jean, whatever. They were ordered out of the driver's side door, and the man ordered Jimmy to quote, "take off his goddamn britches." So this guy, this mysterious hooded gentleman, is telling this kid to take his pants down.
And in Texarkana, carjackings are not a common thing.
No, it's a very
So to
rural,
be carjacked, especially in 1946,
Especially-
Jimmy would not really have known what's going on.
especially be carjacked and told to take your pants off. So John,
Agreed.
after Jimmy complies,
Common thing in Compton, not that common in
So
Texarkana.
after Jimmy complies and takes his pants off, the man just fucking pistol whips him in the head 2 times, knocking him clean out.
Unconscious.
So Mary Jean, Jimmy's girlfriend, assumed that the assailant wanted to rob them. So she showed him both of their wallets and to try to prove that they had no money and this man should just
we're
leave.
broke.
At this point in the story, the fucking guy with the pillowcase on his head pistol whips her as well. So the attacker told her to stand up because she doesn't knock her out. She's just fucked up. To stand up and run. So she sees their car. She starts
She
running.
turns, she runs.
Yeah, she runs. She
She
tries
spots a different car. She spots an old car parked off the road.
Yeah, so she runs
So
to-
she's like, run again. This is an empty rural field. Like,
Okay.
picture this just like wide open. There's fields. Like, they're on a country road. There are not a lot of
No, I
houses.
get it.
Yeah,
Hold
yeah,
on.
yeah. I'm
Let me
just
just
like, I
finish
got this.
Let me just finish this part.
Fine.
So she spotted an old car parked off the road, like John and rudely interrupted and said, and then ran to it and tried to hide behind it. The attacker quickly caught up to her and asked her why she was running. So she's confused and puzzled. John, what happened next?
So, terrified and puzzled. Terrified yet puzzled. Terrified because she is puzzled. She said that she had ran because the attacker had told her to. And then the attacker called her a liar and knocked her down. And then he started to sexually assault her.
What did he do specifically? Did he rape her or did he just do some creepy shit?
Ben, the police report that I had access to just said that the report he sexually assaulted her. Remember,
wasn't
it's
good.
1946.
It wasn't good.
They don't have rape kits at this point.
Yeah, I know.
They just kind of,
Whatever he did, we can agree was bad,
bad.
probably.
It was
Yeah,
very bad.
It was very bad.
Very bad.
So not, some dark shit. Keep going.
Okay, so when it was over, the assailant sort of leaves, and then she fled and was able to awaken the residents of a nearby house and phone the police.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, her date, Jimmy, had regained consciousness and flagged down a motorist. Meanwhile, he's still pantsless.
Well, he might have put them back on.
No, he didn't. The pants were actually found about 100 yards away from where he woke up. So
the killer not yet killer. But keep going.
Yeah. So within minutes, Bowie County sheriffs would be on the scene, but the attacker was long gone. Again, both of them been knocked unconscious at given points. Jimmy and Mary Jean would give slightly conflicting reports about the assailant to police, mainly concerning his race.
Okay.
Mary Jean believed that she could see through the cutouts of the pillow and that he was African American. Meanwhile, Jimmy...
Sounds like they're fucking scapegoating, if you ask me.
Well, but Jimmy maintained like he was the one who probably interacted with him a little bit more than Mary Jean. I mean, maybe not given the sexual assault.
Was this guy wearing gloves? Do we know that?
We don't.
Okay, so here's the thing. Though. I just feel like...
But basically, like, Jimmy thought the guy was pretty sure that he was white, but admitted that the flashlight sort of obscured his vision.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I feel like imagination, like, if you're at the point of a gun at night, and you're terrified, you're a bunch of fucking... You're one guy who's not much younger than we are, you're a girl who's 19, I feel like at the point of a gun, you're going to be fucking terrified. Your senses aren't going to be around there. I feel like maybe she had an unreasonable fear of black people. For that reason, she claimed he was. But I feel like it would be impossible to tell whether he was black, white, brown, fucking yellow, whatever. It doesn't matter at night.
We know that through our investigative research and just literally the years of experience we have between us that, like, adrenaline can cloud memory.
Absolutely.
It can cloud the memory and recollections later. So, like, look. But ultimately, this case remains open and unsolved. So, like, whether Mary Jean thought it was a black guy or whether Jimmy Hollis thought it was a white guy sort of becomes irrelevant.
Exactly. So, John, I mean, what happened next is pretty typical. So, law enforcement repeatedly... So, they take Mary Jean and her lover inside. They question them. And they have trouble figuring out if their account is accurate. They actually believe that Jimmy and Mary Jean might have known the assailant and were covering for him because of the conflicting nature of their stories. Now, they didn't elaborate as to why they think they might have known him, but if they did know the guy who sexually assaulted Mary Jean, I don't think that was the case, because I don't think any boyfriend would do that, or you know what he looks like? A bitch. So anyway... The first murders quickly happened soon thereafter.
Yeah,
a man named Richard L. Griffin and his girlfriend of 6 weeks, Polly Ann Moore, were found dead in Paul's 1941 Oldsmobile sedan on the morning of Sunday, March 24th, 1946, roughly a month after the first attack. They were found on the same rural road that Jimmy and Mary Jean had been initially assaulted on. That being said, they were about 1.5 miles away from the initial attack.
Which I think is just relevant because it's like the guy was patrolling a certain area. Like, obviously, this is a podcast, it's an audio format. I would love to provide you a map, and it's certainly there because we're going to reference a few roads going forward. But, like, what you really need to know broadly, if you're not familiar with the actual topography, is that, like, it's within probably a 4 or 5 mile circular radius on country roads, big parcels of land, and then, like, you know, roads intersecting in between. So that's all I just kind of wanted to, because we're going to talk about locations. And, you know,
so, John, I mean, it's important to note that, I mean, these victims were not found, though, in usual circumstances.
Correct. There's not to spoil, but there's going to be a handful of more victims, and yes, they're all found in different positions. There's no unanimity.
Let me get to this first murder.
Sure, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump.
So Richard was in the front seat after he was killed with his pockets pulled out. This is when police found him. Polly Ann was sprawled in the back seat, face down. Both had been shot in the head, and both were fully closed with no signs of sexual assault, unlike the first victim.
Why do you think his pockets were pulled out?
John, the killer was clearly looking to make some extra cash after this first murder.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. What he wanted to do is he wanted to get his rocks off because he's clearly a sick, twisted murderer of some sort who enjoys terrorizing the local populace. But I think he was thinking he might be able to also profit off of this particular case. And again, if I could just dive back for a second, I don't think the first two victims did know this person. I think that was just police craziness. Because
I don't think so either.
Yeah, that doesn't
I wanted to touch on that.
That doesn't make any sense to me at all.
I don't think so. They didn't even bring in any suspects in that part of the case. Maybe I should have put this in the outline, but like, yeah, I honestly like the first attack versus the first murder is interesting because it's sort of, we don't officially even know if it was the same guy. We just can only sort of speculate.
No, we don't. And why is that even, like, why do they think
it's a low county. It's a small, underpopulated county. this happened in the very
with
same
not a lot
vicinity.
of violent crime. Basically.
Exactly. It's just like,
so
well,
if there's
like,
one violent criminal doing one thing, odds are it's the same guy doing another thing.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, and like, wow, that isn't much to go off of. It is kind of like the Occam's razor.
Yeah, side
like
note, folks, I don't know if you ever have driven through the border of Arkansas and Texas, but I have, and John, I'm pretty sure you have as well. It's an extremely rural environment.
Mm-hmm.
There are like
wide open.
There are 5 farms and like 17 people, and if you go outside of that, there's really not much at all. So these people are not used to violent crime. You know what they're used to?
Not at all.
The worst thing they're used to is coyotes killing their cows sometimes.
Wolves.
Yeah, wolves. There are wolves there. There's fucking bears. There's wild hogs, a big problem in a lot of Texas. But John, please continue to the rest of this.
So, like we said, Richard was found in the front seat, and Polly Ann was found in the back seat, both shot in the head. A blood-soaked patch of earth near the car, or in the car, like in the floorboards of the car, kind of suggested to police that both had been killed outside of the car and then placed back in. Remember, this is in 1946. There is an advanced forensical sort of technology to dissect these crime scenes. They're going on like gut and sort of inference, right?
I feel like you could fucking get away with murder easily until probably the year 1980.
Yeah, especially in rural counties.
Folks,
I remember.
wait,
Look,
John,
hang on.
Let me finish for a second. I was already talking. Just think about this for a second. We live in one of the first time periods, and this is a very good thing, folks. We live in one of the first time periods where it is difficult to get away with a murder.
Yeah.
For most of history, you could get away with murder easily because there was no one that knew how to prove otherwise. But right now. Go ahead. Say your thought. You wanted to get it out.
I grew up in a rural area.
Yes.
Like, I grew up on 8 acres out in the middle of fucking nowhere. You cannot see my house from the road in any given direction. Mm-hmm. I remember, like, as a kid, vividly being like, you could probably murder someone out here.
Oh, yeah.
Like, out in the middle of nowhere, Podunk County sheriffs. I mean, not that I want to murder anyone. I really don't. But, like, you could, like, if you were going to do it and get away with it,
I have
there's
a question
the place.
for you, though. Have you ever seen the show CSI?
Yes.
Because I feel like past the year... Past the year 2000, if you have seen the show CSI, you know you are not going to get away with murder. But in 1946, and I would dare say any year before 1980, forensics just were not there yet. Yes, there were good detectives. Yes, there was excellent police out there working the beat, solving crimes, solving mysteries, much like we are right now. But what I will say is this, is they couldn't test cum yet. If someone spermed on a victim,
once
they couldn't
they
see
got
exactly
there
where
to test cum,
John, there is
game over for criminals, right?
John, there's a data bank somewhere in the U.S. government that just has billions of samples of jizz from every single person that has ever lived. And now we can rely on that. If you are anywhere near a crime scene, what will happen is they will see, okay, did any of your cum come out? And if it did, you're fucked. And I don't know why. And I feel like cum, like,
now, wait, hang on. Does that rule out any crimes committed where the perpetrator does not cum?
Oh, no, not at all. Because, John, it's well known that microscopic levels of cum are coming out of your penis at all times. Microscopic drifts, just constantly.
Microscopic levels of pre-cum.
Microscopic levels of cum. Because bear in mind,
you're technically always emitting pre-ejaculatory
most crimes aren't sexual. I'm saying, like, let's say
nature.
Let's say me, Ben Bataski. I go down the street to rob one of our friends at Imports real quick, which I obviously would never do. I just want to rob him. There's nothing sexual going on at all. Microscopic levels of semen would drip out of me at all times. At least I assume.
We talked earlier about your level of testosterone. I think it was even just beyond the mystery. We talked about even just in the ad section of the. We talked about your emission of testosterone. Do you think that is what is, like, in this case, bringing that from the ads back into the investigation, do you think this perpetrator, this murder, was emitting levels of testosterone / pre-ejaculatory fluids from his body, but the technology didn't exist in 1946 to capitalize on that evidence?
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah? I'm glad you brought that up because, yes, obviously he was, but that being said, I feel like it was probably very little because this is a man who is clearly a coward. What he's doing is he's wearing a pillowcase over his head.
Weird.
He's attacking strangers who are in the midst of passionate hellos. And his only
bumping uglies.
His only goal is, I think, to inflict fear and make people feel like assholes. So I would say that yes, this person is probably what we in the biz, or at least according to commercials, call low T. But that being said, every single human who admits testosterone of any kind is at least dripping some some little sperms onto the ground at all times. They just kind of leak out of you. So, John, it's important to note, though, what the police did in their reaction to this. So in response to the murders, police from several states, including Texas and Arkansas, launched a statewide investigation along the Texas and Arkansas City Police Departments.
They also
Miller
had the
and Cass County Police Department. So all just Texas and Arkansas bordering counties, as well as the FBI, who came in for federal assistance. The newly established FBI, by the way. So in the coming days after these murders, they interviewed over 50 witnesses, also people of interest, and offered a $500 reward for information. Bear in mind, I know that sounds really small, but $500 in 2016 time...
It's several thousand dollars.
2018 time, it's more than that.
Several $1,000s.
It's actually probably like, it could be over like, John, can we just look up how much that is real quick?
No, that's not important.
All right, fine. It's a lot of money, folks. Look it up at home and see how much $500
do some sleuthing of your own
time is worth today.
So we're gonna Ben. Look, I've been thinking about this case a lot.
Then tell me what you think. Jesus, we're tired of speculating.
Right. I've been trying to, but the thing you don't know about, Ben, is the second and third murder. It's a double homicide that occurred in one evening.
Okay.
On the early spring night of April 13th, teenage Betty Jo Booker was playing her alto saxophone in her regular gig at the Smoky Lounge and VFW Club with her band, the Rhythmicaires.
Okay.
So she's playing all the hits. Her band is laying down hot tracks, and all of the suitors are there trying to get with her, but then they realize that she's in her early teens, and they decide, that's a bad idea. What kind of
suitors are these?
Well, no, that's when they back off.
You see,
they
John,
think, hang on, no, Ben, let me explain. Because then they back off. They find out, but what I'm trying to say is that she's a woman beyond her years. She emits a level of experience and worldliness that girls her age just didn't at the time. And that was, admirable, I guess.
I feel like right now, as a 28-year-old, when I see an 18-year-old, they look like a child.
Sure.
So I don't think someone in their early teens could possibly admit anything
She was 19. She was 17.
Unless you're a diddler.
She was 17 at the time.
What's this a club full of diddlers?
No, I don't think so. It's just like she plays saxophone in the jazz band.
Again, I feel like I wouldn't. Let me put it this way, folks. I've always been.
I feel like you always seem to focus on the absolute, just wrong details.
So let's get into what Mary Betty Jo did next.
Right. So she's at the club playing her regular gig with her band, and at about 1:30 a.m. that Sunday morning, her friend Paul Martin arrived to pick her up. This is the last time that the couple would be seen alive.
Jesus Christ. So, John, a few hours later, the impossible happened.
Paul's body was found lying on its
left
side.
Ben,
I got this one. So, when a few hours later they found Paul's body lying on its left side by the northern edge of North Park Road, blood had been found further down the other side of the road by a fence.
My God.
He had been shot 4 times, including once right through his nasal cavity. Betty Jo's body was not found for a few hours later until it was about 11:30 a.m. And the body was found about 2 miles away from Paul's body, behind a tree, seemingly tried to be concealed, right? She was found lying on her back, fully clothed. She had been shot twice through the chest and face. The weapon was determined to be the same as the first murder, a .32 automatic Colt pistol. They found Paul's car a few miles away, parked with the key still in it. Authorities were not sure who was shot first, but the examinations of the bodies indicated that they had both put up a significantly terrific struggle.
So, John, it's important to note that Paul's friend, Tom Albatron, said that the two had not been fighting, so they had had a good relationship, and that Paul didn't have any enemies that he knew of. They couldn't find any of Betty Jo's saxophones for months. So
it's just the one saxophone.
So they couldn't find her one saxophone for months, so someone had likely stolen it. Until someone came across her saxophone, the same as Betty Jo's, in the woods, some 200 yards from where they had found her body. Fear and anxiousness continued to spread through the region known as Texarkana. So, John, these would not be the last murders that the pillowcase killer would commit.
No,
on the windy night
The ones we're about to talk are the last murders.
Yes, exactly.
These are the final murders.
Yes, exactly. So, John, on the windy night of May 3rd, 1946, also known as the Whistler's Night,
Ooh,
Virgil...
Why is it called the Whistler's Night, real quick?
Because, the wind blew so hard that it whistled.
Okay, go on.
Okay, so anyway. So, Virgil Starks was a muscular man. He was age 37, approaching young middle-aged, and he was a farmer, a welder, and an all-around handyman, known for his modesty and way with words, and even ability to tell a funny joke. So one night, he was living in his modern ranch-style house that was almost 10 miles northeast of the border of Texas and Arkansas.
Northeast of Texarkana, like where these murders have been taking place. I don't mean to interject.
Whatever.
I don't mean to interject. Sorry, these notes are a little bit rough.
So this guy, this man named Virgil, he turns on his favorite weekly radio show. We don't know what it was because it's not documented, but he and his wife Katie, the beautiful Katie, age 36, just in the prime of her life. She's aging like fine wine, quite frankly.
Teeming with beauty.
When she was 26, people told her that she could be Miss America. But you know what she said? No, I am in love with Virgil Starks, and I want to be someone who can help him build a business while he helps me build my business. Bear in mind, this was no stay-at-home mom. Fucking Katie was someone who was formidable. She took charge in the household. But anyway, one night they're hanging out when he turns on his weekly radio show, and then Katie decides it's time for bed, so she goes to her bedroom, and she's lying on her back in her nightgown. And then she heard something from the backyard and asked Virgil to turn on the radio. So she hears rustling in the backyard. Seconds later, 2 shots were fired into the back of Virgil's head from just outside of their window. So someone shoots through the window into Virgil's head, into their house.
Gruesome.
Katie did not hear the gunshots when later asked about it. Instead, she said what sounded like breaking glass. So this leads us to believe that the shooter was far away.
Well, the shooter was outside the home shooting through glass. So the sound of the gunshot, she wouldn't have heard. She would literally if you're inside, like you'd hear a faint, like it'd be like a firework, but
I disagree that outside of your house, you would have heard it.
But like it's called volume masking. I actually studied this in college. So like you fucking like
Was it a class?
Yeah, it was one of my
audio. What grade did you get?
Like B+. It was an audio
so
production.
Not an A, though.
It was an audio production 1. It was an aspect of what we talked about in audio production 1. Mm-hmm. Basically, that the volume of and frequency of the glass breaking, and because that the actual sound waves of the gunshot would have been outside of the home, all she would have heard. Basically, the gunshot sound waves go the opposite direction of the house. The sound of the glass breaking is what she hears. So she would hear a faint pop and then glass break. So you would be like, oh, he dropped like a whiskey glass, right?
So, John...
Sorry, I don't mean to get technical, but like I'm passionate about sound.
Well, all of that is very interesting.
No, it's not.
As an A+ member of Glass Breaking 101 when I was in college, it just sounds to me like he was far away and shot through the window.
Sure.
But anyway, so, where were we?
She thought...
So, anyway, Virgil thought that they had...
Katie.
Whatever.
Virgil.
Katie...
Get it together.
Get your face out of my hand. So, Katie thought that Virgil had simply dropped something. She did not think that gunshots had actually been fired into the house. So, she went downstairs to investigate. As she entered the doorway to the downstairs from the stairs to the living room, she saw Virgil standing up, holding his head, and then suddenly he slumped back and fell into his chair. Soon she saw blood run down the side of his neck, and then she ran over to him, screaming wildly, "Virgil, Virgil, don't die on me now. You've been through worse than this." Soon, however, she realized he was dead. She ran to their telephone. Bear in mind, in this time period, in 1946, folks, it's a rotary phone, and rotary phones are super shitty. So she dials the cops. Phones. She's dialing like 911. It sucks. So, John, what happened next, though? Because soon she was calling the police.
So while calling the police, Katie was then also shot twice in the face from the same window vantage point.
Jesus.
One bullet entered her right cheek and exited behind her left ear. The other went into her lower jaw and just below the lower lip, breaking it and splintering out several teeth before lodging under her tongue, but not killing her. Crucially, Like, none of these injuries, like, it hits her, like, your bone and your mouth and your face and shit, part of your head. I know you think of like, your head, if it gets hit there, you're done.
It sounds
like,
unbelievably painful.
Incredibly. But if you hit your jaw, you're going to live.
They missed her spinal cord, and they missed her brain.
They hit her jaw. Her cheeks. It's painful. Undeniably painful.
Folks, take this to the bank. If your head gets fucked up, but your brain and your spinal cord is okay, no need to worry.
Yeah, calm down. So she dropped her knees, but then she soon would manage to get on her feet. Then, a chaotic, blood-soaked pursuit would ensue in and around the small, quiet farmhouse out in the middle of Texarkana.
So she's being chased by a murderer, basically.
Yeah. Katie's basically like using the terrain of her house. Like, she's in her nightgown,
and she's been shot fucking twice.
She's in her nightgown, shot twice, barefoot, bleeding. But she knows a killer is in and around her house. Mm-hmm. She has to get to help somehow.
Yeah.
So she eventually just like evades the killer with the gunman enough and runs about the 40 yards to her neighbor's house, A.V. Prater. She manages to gasp the phrase, "Virgil's dead," before just collapsing. Just her neighbor, nice guy, good guy.
Do we know what he did for a living?
Farmer. Plays no further part in the story.
I feel like most people are farmers here.
Plays no further part in the story, but like he's like, oh shit, my neighbor covered in blood is like my husband's dead
and
seemingly
injured.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like wounds through her mouth and face.
In her face.
Teeth missing. So she's like, okay, he's on Katie's side. He's like, all right. Prater and his wife frenetically just got Katie in their car and they make a daring escape to the hospital.
Frantically,
you know it. So Ben, recap for me thus far the entire mystery in just a quick 60-second.
Okay, folks, here's what we got. So in the early spring of 1946, actually the midwinter of 1946, there's a young couple. They're making out on Lover's Lane. A creepy asshole comes up to their car. He attacks them. He sexually assaults the girl and knocks out the guy that ends up knocking out the girl as well. A couple months later, he murders 2 other people. And now he's murdering the... wait a minute.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so he's murdered a bunch of people.
Yeah, how many people has he murdered?
He's murdered... Okay, so he's murdered...
Oh, wait a minute. Okay, folks. So these people that we're talking about right now are his...
last murderers.
Second... No, third and fourth murders.
He murdered Richard L. Griffin
these
and
were
Polly
the
and
first
Moore.
murders.
Then he murdered Betty Jo Booker.
You're right.
And Paul Martin. And now he
these
went
are
to the Starks.
5th and 6th murders.
Yes, 5th and attempted 6th.
You're right. 5th and attempted 6th murders. So, folks, like, this guy is clearly a serial killer bent on destroying this rural neighborhood. And, folks, there is obviously a big investigation that follows to this point with multiple agencies involved. And, John, I would like you to take away this lightning round of the important stuff that we haven't covered yet, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. Based on the crime scene, it was apparent that a rifle was likely used for the last killing. After killing Virgil, the killer cold-heartedly and patiently waited and positioned himself outside to wait to kill Katie until she was in the right spot, but missed her vital organs. He was sniping from a relative distance.
So, John, this guy was basically hunting this family.
Precisely. Police found a flashlight underneath the hedge at the Starks household. They also, at the Starks household, found bloody shoe prints on the kitchen floor that were not Katie's or Virgil's. A few $1,000s in cash were not taken from the Stark household. Clearly, robbing the couple was not the killer's motivation. He was there to hunt.
So he was there to hunt people, basically. The most dangerous game.
So now this goes back and forth between multiple agencies in Texas. And Ben, catch us up. Like if you were telling me about it earlier in your research, that there was like a young, handsome guy who sort of like commandeered the investigation, kind of broke the case.
So, John,
right?
as you can imagine, there were very ambitious law enforcement officials who were dedicated to solving justice for the right reasons. They wanted to find this killer and bring order back to this rural and, quite frankly, traumatized border society of Texarkana. So, starry-eyed detective Max Tactic soon realized, after investigating this case for months, that a car had been
Tactic. Hang on, I'm just real quick because this is funny.
It's Tackett. It's
you
spelled
called him Tactic.
No,
you said Max Tactic.
It sounds
which is
much
a
better.
funny name,
folks. Max Tackett, who should have been named Max Tactic, soon realized that a car in a prime area where he was investigating this murders had been stolen and turned up abandoned in a nearby parking lot to where the first murders took place. So, what Max Tactic, fucking asshole, did next was stake out the car until a 21-year-old woman, who was soon identified as a pseudonym that we don't know the name of, but we'll call her Peggy for the sake of argument, turned up and would soon be arrested on the spot. So, John, Peggy said after she was taken into custody, she told cops that she had just married her husband in Shreveport. No, it's Shreveport.
You've literally heard that. It's in Texas.
Is it really?
Yeah, Shreveport, Texas.
Go
on.
I mean, I might have driven through it, but I'm not familiar.
Shreveport.
So
Shreveport.
I assumed it was somewhere German. But anyway, her husband in Shreveport, which is apparently a city in Texas. But she informed police that her husband was actually in Atlanta at the time. But, he might be
Atlanta, Texas. There's a city in Texas called Atlanta. I knew this was
Folks,
confusing.
I'm from New Jersey, and this state is gigantic. It's impossible to keep track of all the various cities.
You could
I
fit
live in
like
Austin.
30 New Jerseys in Texas.
Oh, you could fit more than 30
Probably,
New Jerseys
yeah.
in Texas. You could fit one New Jersey in the county that I live in right now. So, folks, soon this young cop, Tactic, is hot on the case. He's got this lady we'll call Peggy in custody, and he's questioning her. So, John, what did Tactic do next? I just don't know.
So basically,
Peggy
said that her husband was in Shreveport trying to sell a car that they had stolen recently. And so Tactic calls the chief of police in Atlanta, Texas, and that guy told him that recently someone in his town had just unknowingly bought a stolen car.
Really?
Exactly.
Do we know what kind of car it was?
No, we do not. Tactic.
Do we know who knows?
If you want to dig deep, it just is not relevant.
Okay, fine. Keep going.
So eventually Tactic would interview the guy who bought the stolen car, and he would ask the guy, Tyler Jones, if he could identify who he bought it from. But alas, Tyler just didn't really feel like, he was like, "Look, man, I'm sorry, I want to help you, but it was a real quick transaction. I don't know who he was. He was just a regular looking dude."
Yeah.
But then cleverly, Detective Taggart would deduce though that the man who he bought the car from would probably recognize Tyler Jones.
Was Detective Tactic known for being clever?
Yes, he's a rising star, and yeah.
What do you look like? Can you describe?
He's 6'4", brown hair, blue eye,
so very tall,
square jawed, looks like a young Robert Mueller in 1946.
So he's 6'7" and will be
he
the
could
head
dunk.
Could he really
a basketball?
dunk?
Yeah, that's
okay.
I mean, look, I did a little background information, but and again, it's 46 records are a bit sketchy, but yeah, he was known as being able to dunk and a great outside shooter. Played on basketball varsity all 4 years.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, right.
I had no idea. So the man is an athlete, is what you're saying.
God damn
and because
the man is who we should, as mystery investigators, aspire to be. Ben, need I say more?
Well, I mean, bear in mind, we're following in the footsteps of Max Tackett and people like him, because you and I both pride ourselves on learning from heroes such as he, in order to expose the truth on many a mystery. John, please continue.
Basically, Tackett figured that, okay, the guy who sold the car knew it was stolen, and he knows that within a short amount of time, the guy that buys this stolen car is going to be picked up by police for being driving the stolen car.
Maybe.
So, if the guy who sold the car sees the guy in public, he's going to sees the guy he sold it to, he's going to be like, "Oh shit, I don't want to see this guy."
Muscle memory, man. You remember your sales.
So, what Tackett does is on a Saturday in July, he has Tyler Jones walk into the Arkansas motor bus station on Front Street near Union Station in Texas, in Dallas. Or wherever they were, Atlanta, Texas, right?
They were in Atlanta, Texas,
so,
one of the littler known places
now,
in Texas.
So basically, the guy, Tyler Jones is bait. Tackett is just sitting in the background, observing.
Detective Tackett.
And so what he sees is a guy walk into the main office, see Tyler Jones, and and get super spooked, and start running out of the back of the building. Yeah. So Tackett goes, he chases after him, and he caught him on the fire escape. The man, Yule Swinney, after a confrontation, he's taken into custody, and he's not going to talk. But his wife, Peggy, the woman arrested at the stolen car, confessed in great detail that he was the phantom killer from the murders we've been describing.
This is true, folks. So, I mean, there were a lot of points that were for and against the case of Ewell Sweeney. Folks,
right here, read this part first.
So, by law, folks, in 1946, Peggy, Ewell Sweeney's wife, could not be made to testify against her husband, and this is a bizarre law that actually existed in Texas in 1946. That
basically,
meant, hold on, John. I'm trying to explain it here. You're cutting me off like an asshole.
You're right. I'm sorry.
You have no manners. I have no shame. Were you raised in a barn? So anyway, in 1946 in Texas, a wife literally could not testify her husband for anything. And folks, that is just a little piece of history that I think we have moved past in our great lives. So, anywho.
So we've talked a lot about Ewell and Betty's insane confession and Ewell's recklessness in front of the agents. So there's a lot of circumstantial evidence that would make you think that Ewell Sweeney is the phantom killer, the Texarkana murderer. However, there's a few contradictory points. We're going to run through them both right now in lightning round 2.
Okay.
So Ben, give me the first one.
So, John, when Tackett...
This is circumstantial evidence.
I get it, circumstantial evidence.
For the listener.
You are doing right now, you are interrupting a delicate train of thought. So, John, in this circumstantial evidence, Detective Tackett caught Ewell Sweeney on the fire escape. Sweeney said at the time, quote, "Please do not shoot me," to which Tackett replied, "I'm not going to shoot you from stealing cars." Sweeney then replied to Tackett, "Mister, don't play games with me. You don't want me for no more than stealing cars." Number 2, when a lawyer told Peggy that her husband was being held for murder, she exclaimed, quote, "How did they find out?" So right now, folks, it seems like this couple, the Sweeney couple, knows that they are under wraps for something. So then, folks, Peggy took officers near a spot where Paul Martin's car was found.
That's the boyfriend of the saxophone player.
Yes, exactly. The boyfriend of the saxophone player who was subsequently murdered with the saxophone player. So he was found dead, and she said she went into the woods near there, to which the officers found a woman's heel prints in the area. So it looks like there might have been a woman there that took part in that murder.
Police found a khaki work shirt in the suspect Ewell Sweeney's room with the laundry mark word, basically STARK.
So Stark.
Written like if you write your name on your clothing, right?
Yeah.
But that was only visible under black light, which was kind of weird at the time, so a bit circumstantial. While being accused...
He pissed the name Stark or something.
So while being accused of a number of crimes like car theft and larceny... No. Well, here's the thing. During all the other charges, he was vocal during court. He was like, no, I didn't do that. He's pleading defense, giving criminal.
Okay.
Suspiciously, when he was being accused of murder, he grew silent. So
again,
what
you're saying is he probably only committed the murders.
Again, it's circumstantial. Like, you can't pin someone for murder based on the fact that they didn't say anything.
No, you can't.
But, like, it's just like you can read that.
He has the right to remain silent, but
exactly.
From a third-party perspective, it looks pretty strange.
Mm-hmm.
So, Peggy Sweeney, the wife of this potential killer, confessed to her husband's actions very quickly after being taken in custody. She revealed very detailed information, including things officers already knew and other things that they did not. So, folks, the case against Ewell Sweeney,
basically the non-circuit,
the things that say he might not have been the killer, the evidence that says that exactly. So, Ewell's fingerprints did not actually match any of the latent fingerprints at any of the murder crime scenes. The Texas Rangers also, and the Sheriff Bill the Wild Man Presley, were not convinced that Sweeney was the phantom killer based on the facts he did not seem intellectually capable of killing. So, John, what else happened? Why didn't they think he did it?
Officers, including Bodie County Sheriff Presley, Miller County Sheriff Davis, Texas City Chief of Police Ronnie Runnels, and other officers. Their officers in both state police worked day and night for 6 months trying to validate Peggy Sweeney's story of their whereabouts. They deduced that Peggy was not telling the truth, and that on the night of both Betty Jo Booker and Paul Martin, the musician and boyfriend, the couple was actually sleeping in their car under a bridge near San Antonio.
So basically what you're saying is they were homeless road junkies that were trying to find their 50 minutes in fame for murder.
Exactly. And when confronted about this very fact, Peggy Swinty immediately began to recant her confession.
Really?
Unknown as either, but this is one of the bigger ones that just sort of took place years later, like in the aftermath. So
How many years later?
I'll get to it. Unknown as either a sick prank or a true confession, an anonymous woman contacted family members of the victims, extended family members of the victims, one in 1999 and another in 2000, apologizing for what her father had done. But Yule Sweeney never had a daughter.
John, I think I already know the explanation to this tale.
Go ahead.
So I would like to go ahead and try to solve this mystery.
Speculate wildly, my friend. Do it.
I'm going to speculate wildly right now, and I think that the person that called to apologize in the 90s and early 2000s was full of shit, and here's why. Because why would the daughter ever be in on the escapades of a serial killing father? It doesn't make any sense. The other thing is this, is that after 50 years, why would she try to come out now and apologize for the crimes of someone else? And
Guilt?
John, let me finish, please, because what I'm about to do is solve this crime. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Just go on.
Okay. Okay, so anyway, I think that what we have here is not the actions of one person, but the actions of two distinct people. I think that there might have been two separate crimes. One that attacked that initial pair of lovebirds in that fateful year of 1946, where no one was killed, and a second one that thought, you know what, that might be a great way for me to disguise my homicidal acts as someone else. So they thought, they saw that in a newspaper, they put a pillowcase over their face, and they thought, now's my time to shine.
I'm going to do the same shit,
I'm
and they're
going to
blame
go
it on
murder
someone else.
people
Yep.
this time,
Okay.
though.
That's
What do
not
you
crazy.
think?
It's tough to say. I think it was definitely. I mean, I ultimately think it was Yule Sweeney. I think that the main out of the case against Yule Sweeney.
I disagree.
Hey, well, fuck. Was I asking you?
Were you?
No, you asked me, asshole. So here's the thing.
Go on.
So, like, Yule Sweeney, the biggest hole in the case against them is that they were sleeping under a bridge. My deflation in that defense is that, well, the fucking record keeping of homeless people in Texas in 1940s was probably nil.
Shoddy.
So, yeah, shoddy at best. So I don't know how reliable their deduction of them being located in under the bridge was. And so if like there's their alibi to one of the murders, I think it's possible it was Yule Sweeney. He seemed to immediately be like, oh, they're fucking coming after me for
What
these
do we
murders.
know about Yule Sweeney, like from his life before
Former
Texas?
car salesman.
Was he American by birth?
Yes, just a weird name.
Yeah, really weird name.
name.
But here's the thing, though. I have
Ben,
a question.
look, what I
John,
want
let
to
me
know,
ask
but
my
that's
question.
not but no, your
Let
question.
me ask
no,
the
I don't.
question. Let me ask the goddamn question. Stop trying to fucking railroad me
Censor.
off of drunk mysteries because you're afraid of the questions I might
What do you
answer.
got, Patesky?
Jesus Christ. Okay, so here's what I think. I think that you need to tell me whether or not you think that there might have been some sort of conspiracy that led to multiple killers killing multiple people for the specific reason of terrorizing this Texas-Arkansas border, because I don't think it's beyond the pale. I mean, we don't have any other names besides Yule Sweeney. When I think that it was definitely not Yule Sweeney, I think that him and his homeless wife, they were both homeless. This homeless couple thought that maybe we can go to jail and get a couple warm nights in a bed and get some food that we don't have to scavenge out of a trash can. Going to jail for 20 years if you are living under a bridge is not the worst fucking punishment in the world. And I think that we might have something much larger at play here. Please, give me your feedback.
I think you're right. I don't know what else I can
Who
say.
specifically do you think did it? I need a name.
I mean, I think Yule Sweeney is
Other than Yule Sweeney.
I don't fucking know, man. Here's the thing. Also, okay, like if it's not Yule Sweeney, right? Like let's assume for a second it's not.
Yeah.
So it's then I just think he's kind of some backwoods shooter. I think he might be onto something in saying that the first attack and the first murder are unrelated, and in fact, it had nothing to do with one another. But he just kind of like made it this. I think that makes a lot of sense. But like it's 1946. The trouble is that we have the benefit of like the tools we have and would rely on now that are accurate and precise. Sperm collection, testosterone, acumen,
Leaking fluids.
precisely. all the things we would rely on now simply because of their accuracy, we don't have access to those records from 1946.
I have wait, hold. Here's the thing, though, John. So I would love to keep on speculating wildly, and I think you need to stop talking about this because I think we've solved this case.
I'm sorry, I had a lot more to say, but I guess you're right.
Yeah, no, you're right. I'm right. So, folks, first I would like to thank our sources for helping us solve this mystery as we did tonight. Wikipedia, our fun friends at the different places. John, who else?
There was an article in the New York Times that I actually couldn't find a credit to. Because it was dated from 1944.
How'd you find the original article?
I have access to the LexisNexis News, but we used that and a little bit of Wikipedia, and then another article on Ancestry.com. But that was, again, just they didn't publish the actual fucking the writer, author. I've been drinking. I apologize.
You have no idea who did either of these things. Huh?
It's weird. I know that's uncommon for us tonight on Drunk Mysteries
in general.
Look, man, do you want to crucify me or not?
So, John, all I would like to do is just tell our listeners to crucify us with praise by subscribing and reviewing, and that is the best way to serve us, make us feel like you're servants, your underlings.
But we're the servants, and you're.
No, that's what I said. Your servants.
We are the underlings in that.
Have you been drinking?
Yes.
Sober up, man. Jesus.
Right, get it together, asshole.
Get it together. Good God. So, folks,
and again, we want to thank Voodoo Ranger New Belgium Juicy Haze IPA for being the fuel to our gas tank of mystery solving tonight.
If we were a Hemi engine in a Ford Durango, you know what we'd be powered by? Fucking Austin Independence Brewing Company. And so, folks, that is the best we can do for you tonight to solve this mystery on
Drunk Mysteries. Okay, Ben. Welcome to another episode of the Fever Hallucinations podcast. I'm here under influence of the fever.
You, my friend, are hallucinating right now because this is not the Fever Hallucinations podcast.
It's not?
This is the Dog Sniff Little Boys' Buttholes podcast, where we talk about sightings of dogs.
The stand, but go on.
Where we talk about sightings of dogs sniffing little boys' buttholes. When I was a boy, my butthole was sniffed several times by multiple dogs. How about you?
Only a few times was my butthole ever really sniffed by dogs, but it would definitely left an impact.
Yeah.
We cannot underwrite that fact.
When a dog shits, it doesn't wipe. Bear in mind. So when it's sniffing my asshole, it's getting a cleaner sniff than it's probably ever gotten from another dog.
We're all feeling it,
Yeah.
We're all feeling it.
No.